Welcome to the first of our 4 mini masterclass series throughout the summer of 2021. The very first one is called Demystifying the Queen's Honours. And we also ask you, who do you know that deserves an honour from the Queen? Not only will we tell you how to get one, who should get one, or how to nominate for one, I should say, we will walk you through step by step exactly how to do it. So let's begin. As I said, today's presentation is part of our the first of our 4 summer 2021 mini masterclasses from Wintrade Global Academy. And it's all build up. It's a building block to increase your personal business profile, your personal and your business profile, alongside your credibility, your kudos, and your gravitas. So we want you to get ready to be fit and pumped for 2022. We all need some inspiration, some ideas, any tips and tricks we can get to get us into, give us that jump start to 2022. For many, next year will be a milestone year for all of us, or for many of us. And so we need to make sure that we can get the best out of it. And I hope this will help you do so. So before we get started, as usual, this is best watched on a laptop, a tablet, or a desktop. Phones are not the easiest way to watch this, or the most comfortable way to watch it, or even the most suitable way to interact. Please try to make sure that you're hardwired into your into the router. The Wi-Fi may drop. Open it in a separate browser so there's nothing else that's going to interrupt it. Find a quiet room, switch off your phone, get your coffee if you're going to need some, get focused and get ready to ask some questions, write down notes and ask questions, but do stay to the end because, as usual, we've always got something very special to offer you. So before we start, I just wanted to make sure that you are all aware of our Wintrade Virtual Summit and Awards, which took place on the 14th and 15th of July, 2021. It was the first time that we did such a big event virtually, 2 days online, over 70 speakers, over 30 master classes, and over the 2 days, we had just over 500 people in and out of the sessions and joining us. So it was quite an event. And actually, you can tell the success of it because if you look on our social media, people are still pumping out what an incredible time they had, how much they enjoyed it. They didn't expect it. I think many people thought it was going to be another Zoom call, and it was very far from that. So from here on in, I think that is certainly one of the ways we will go. We will carry on with our physical events, but we will now also be doing things online. So it'd be hybrid events from here on in, or certainly the big ones will. So many of our awardees were really excited and were just so overjoyed. I think there are a few of you on this session already. So, thank you for joining us again. I know at least 2 or 3 of you are joining from a different country, America, Singapore, and possibly, definitely Thailand, I think. I may be wrong, but let me step back on that. But the nominations for 2022, the 2022 awards will open shortly. We'll announce them in September, or we'll announce the date in September. And again, we'll be announcing the date for the summit and the awards for 2022 around about the same time. More information on that coming soon, and you can check us out on wintradeglobal.com. So I hope that those of you who didn't make it this time will certainly consider joining us. So this presentation is for you if you're interested in if you're interested in nominating someone for a Queen's Award, which can raise their credibility, their personal credibility, their business credibility, and their business and personal profile, making them a key person of influence in their industry or your industry. So hang on if that's what you're expecting to hear. During this presentation, you will hear about how we demystify the Queen's Honours system. And during the presentation, you will learn the background of the system and the honours. You'll learn how the whole thing works. You'll learn the perceptions and the reality of who gets an award and why. Again, you'll learn about who gets the awards, who to nominate, and how to nominate them. So there's lots of information in there. And then once you've done that, what the next steps are, what you can expect to happen once you've put the nomination. So what I want to do is just say, look who's talking and why she's talking. So that's me, Dr. Yvonne Thompson, CBE. My brief, very, very brief background is that I started, or part of a group that started and sold the very first legal Black radio station, Choice FM. I started the first Black-owned PR company in the UK. I started one of the first women's business networks in the UK, and certainly the first Black women business in Business UK. I sit on various boards, public and privately owned companies. I still run my marketing and PR communications. I'm a real champion for equality and diversity, and especially around women and minority-owned businesses. I wrote my first book on 7 traits of highly successful women on boards, and it's about diversity on boards, both gender and race. I'm an international speaker and an international trainer. I've done a TEDx for Whitehall women and one in Oman. And equality and diversity has been my passion for well over 35 years now, actually closer to 40 years. So I received my investiture, a commander of the British Empire, back in 2003, nearly what's that, 18, yeah, nearly 18 years ago. It's been quite interesting learning and finding out and wanting to know more about the system, because when I got mine, I certainly did not know anything about the Queens. I mean, I knew of them, but I didn't know anything about them. And there I am receiving my award from Queen Elizabeth on her birthday honours list. And this is outside the palace with my niece who came with me. And at that time, I think she was about 13 or 14. She's now 30. So there you go, totally different person. So it was interesting because my passion for finding out more about the honours and how they work led me to being on the Economy Honours Committee for 2 terms, which is 6 years. In actually, yes, 2 terms for 6 years. And so I got to learn a lot about how it all happens, why it happens, who it happens to, and how to make it happen. And I very quickly learned that it was very much skewed to white male business people, businessmen, I should say, not business people, businessmen. And so during my 6 years, it was, the thing that I championed was to open it up and get more diversity of nominations through, encourage more people to nominate. And that is within the minority and the women community. So, as I said, I'm a CBE. I've been I served 6 years on the Queen's Honours Committee. I still work with the Cabinet Office doing presentations such as this. sometimes with them joining me. I've been invited to Highgrove. I've been invited to Buckingham Palace. I've been to the garden party. I've been to Windsor Castle. And as I usually say, the only castle I've not been to yet is Balmoral. Did you notice I said yet? So who knows, that may still be on its way. So I really wanted to get a sense of how much people on the call know about, know about demystifying the honours, in fact, about the honours. So again, if you can just put number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 into the chat box, then I can see and understand who I'm talking to and how much I really need to say. So just let's give it a couple of seconds and then I'll get an idea of who. Okay, so most of you have heard of it and definitely not enough. And okay, the majority of this call is around number 4. So it means that you know about it, but you've heard about it, but not enough to make a nomination. So, and that's the majority of you. Some of you do know, but the majority not enough. So let me carry on and tell you about what happens and how it happens. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the background, how the honour system works, the perceptions, the reality, who gets an honour, how to nominate, and who should be nominated. So very, very quick background. The first set of kings at the time, it was King George V started the honours system, and it was to recognise people who worked hard and did a lot of things from home, who were not in the war, but was based at home and were still doing incredible things. And he wanted to make sure that they were recognised. And the orders were mainly awarded to civilians and service personnel. And the rank of the order is the Knight or Dame of the Grand Cross, which is the GBE, the Knight or Dame Commander, which is KB or DBE. There's the Commander of the British Empire, the Officer of the British Empire, Member of the British Empire, and the British Empire Medal. We're going to talk about each of those very shortly as we go through. The last 3 are probably the ones that people may know, the last 3 or 4 maybe, are the ones that people know the best. So when I was sent a letter inviting me to accept, am I minded to accept an investiture from the Queen of a CBE, I'd never heard of a CBE. And the funny story is that at the time I was in New York and somebody from my office called me up and said, oh, you've got a letter from the Cabinet Office. Shall I open it? And there's me thinking, oh my gosh, it's another bill. What do they want? Blah, 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 blah. But normally it's not the Cabinet Office that will send you a bill. It's the tax office. So I said, okay, open it. And there was this incredible letter, which I've still got somewhere, saying that the Queen has asked, it was from the Prime Minister, and the Queen was minded to ask him, to ask me if I was minded to accept an award as Commander of the British Empire. And I thought to myself, well, what is a CBE? I've never heard of a CBE. I'd heard of an OBE. And I decided, I don't want a CBE, I want an OBE. But soon after, I didn't reply. But what I did do, Google had just started around about that time. And so I Googled it and saw that the CBE was in fact higher than the OBE. And I said, when I get back, I will respond to the Prime Minister and let him know that, yes, I am minded to accept the Commander of the British Empire from the Queen. So that was an incredible moment. And when you or someone that you have nominated gets to that point, it will be a moment you'll never forget, or they'll never forget. So let's move on. There are two lists every year. There's the New Year's Honours list, which obviously comes out on the first day of each new year. It's actually published on, depending what the day is, if it's at the weekend, it's published on a Saturday night, then it comes out on a Sunday. And so whichever, it comes out the evening before. So in fact, the press get it 2 days before, and then it's published the day before. And then as you wake up on the morning of the first day of the new year, you can see the list. In fact, I think it's available from either 10:30 or 11:30 the evening before. And then, of course, there is the Queen's Birthday Honours list, which comes out on the Queen's official birthday, which is the 6th of June. Her actual birthday, I believe, is the 22nd of April, same month as me. So I always remember that. But so two lists, the New Year's Honours list and the Queen's Birthday list. So that remained the same. The orders remained the same until from 1917 up to 1993, when Sir John Major, the then Prime Minister, changed everything, because the way it was that it was only available to the family of people who received those awards in the first place. It was always handed down, unless that person died, and then a place opened up, and then someone else could be nominated into that space, and then it would go down in their family. And so John Major decided that that's not fair. Lots of people are doing lots of incredible things. So he ended what they call the automaticity, I believe is how you of the automaticity of the honours. So it was not then automatically passed down to someone within your family. Everybody that got the award had to get it in their own right. So that was when the public nominations were introduced, and that opened up the system to everybody. So that was quite amazing. And then it seemed like every prime minister, almost every prime minister, made their own mark. So after John Major, Tony Blair then made his mark on the honours, and that was to open up or to have an independent selection committees. I'll tell you all about those committees shortly. He introduced 9 independent committees. And again, that was because everything was judged or looked at by government departments, and he didn't feel that the people within government departments were in tune enough with the ordinary, everyday person, public person. The other thing that Tony Blair did was to recommend the nominations directly to the Queen. Previously, it would be passed through the government departments, but now it goes to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister discusses and explains practically every, I mean, they're not on individual basis, but talks through all of the people who will be nominated. Well, the incredible thing is that absolutely everybody that receives an award, the Queen has probably 20 or 30 words to say up to them as to why they're receiving. So it's at this point that they talk through who gets what. That takes quite some time. So more recently, the even more recent reforms was when David Cameron came into play. He also recommended an additional independent committee, and which is the philanthropist. So now there are 9 committees, sorry, there are 10 committees. Previously, there were 9. There are now 10 committees. And he introduced the Philanthropy Committee. And again, he endorsed the fact that it should be passed directly from the Prime Minister to Her Majesty the Queen. And again, this brings us up to our current Prime Minister, who also changed. I suppose every Prime Minister brings in their own, what I want to say, their own flavour to what is supposed to happen. So again, Boris Johnson decided that this has got to be merit first, not reputation, as I mentioned before, whether your family or your dad or your uncle had something before. It's got to be on merit. And he wants to look at how we encourage people to level themselves up. So it's about encouraging people to be more proactive in the community. Again, looking at UK values, he was also very interested in getting more innovators and entrepreneurs into the system, which needs to be, which needs to include, one of the things they focus on very much is tech, because that's the way forward. He also wants to look at tackling crime, the environment. We need to look at pollution, and of course, education, which is one of the things that's top of the list. So the process is that the general public will now nominate and send their nominations into the Cabinet Office. All of this is now done online, so I don't believe they are still accepting hard copies, but they really encourage everyone to do their nominations online. It's faster, it's easier, it's more immediate, and you can make amendments yourself once you open an account. If you need to update something, you can go into your account, update the nomination or nominations that you've put in place, and it's there. And you will get, I believe you get an automated email that now says, thank you, your amendments have been received. And you also, once you've done it online, you will automatically get a reference number through which you can follow up. So once it's submitted online and into the Cabinet Office, your nomination will get sorted into one of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, into 8 committees, and we'll go through them shortly, but I mean, they're pretty obvious. And you don't necessarily say which committee your nomination should go to. The Cabinet Office will decide, and they'll put it in what they feel is the appropriate committee. I mentioned before, there's an extra committee that was brought in by David Cameron for philanthropy. And then once your nomination has gone through and been judged or decided on by the committee, each of the committees have about 20 people on it. There are independent people from independent committee members, which I was one. There are government committees from education, from the medical field. There's lots of different, from the business department, lots of different committees. Lots of different representation, government representation. So that's why it's important to have people like myself who are independent and know a bit more about what's going on, if you like, in the community or on the street, rather than just from a government department perspective. So once those committees, they meet in September and they meet in March. So the September committee will decide who gets an honour in January, and the March committee will decide who gets an honour for the Queen's birthday. So once it's gone through those committees, It will then go to the main honours committee. Now, the main honours committee is made up of the chairs of each of these committees, plus the government departments, and they will discuss nominations, the final nominations from each of these committees. And the committees will then, they'll all check that, to make sure that one nominee has not been put in as part of more than one committee. And just to make sure that whether they are actually in the right committee, and that each committee have got the same amount of nominees. And it's usually round about 150 for each committee or thereabouts. There are some other lists. The Queen has her own list. Foreign and Commonwealth have their own list. Foreign and Commonwealth Department has their own list. But all together, through all the various lists and the various committees, it usually ends up with about 1,500 people being awarded on each investiture. So either for the New Year or the Queen's. After that has been scrutinised, this then goes to the Prime Minister, and then the Prime Minister has a meeting with the Queen and moves everything over. Now, this all takes approximately 12 to 24 months. And it takes 12 to 24 months because at each stage, as they decide, yes, this will move forward. So the Cabinet Office, before they recommend a nomination to a committee, they will scrutinise the nomination, the application. They will scrutinise the person that has made the nomination. They will scrutinise the person that is being nominated. They will make sure, one, they are still alive, they still live at the same address, they haven't done anything naughty, they haven't been in prison, they haven't been, doing anything naughty. Just to make sure that by the time it gets to the Queen and it is published, the media has nothing to pick up that isn't already known, because the media has a habit of trawling through the list, looking at who's received something, highlighting the celebrities, and then if there's somebody that they know something about, they will print something in their paper about this person has been awarded, even though he stole a packet of sweets or he stole £10 or whatever it is. They look for something to make, make the committee, make the whole system feel discredited. So, as I said, throughout every step, everybody gets checked before that gets moved on to the next step. As I just mentioned, the committees meet twice a year, March for the birthday honours list and September for the New Year's honours list. But it can take 2 years, it can take more. So it's about being patient. And these are the committees, as I mentioned. The stakeholder suggestions coming here is stakeholders are the government departments, and then the public suggestions come in. It goes through the Cabinet Office, and then it goes to the various independent committees. It then goes to the main committee and the Prime Minister's office, and then to the Queen. So that is the route that it all takes. And those are just the actual committees and the people who actually chair them at the moment. So these are what the actual awards look like and the award levels. As I said, there are 2 lots of dames and knights, but this is the most popular one, or the one that you will know the most. A Dame of the British Empire. This is the Knight of the British Empire medal, Commander of the British Empire medal, Order of the British Empire or Officer of the British Empire, Member of the British Empire, and the British Empire Medal. Now, this is the one, the British Empire Medal is the one that David Cameron brought back because he wanted a slightly lower level to encourage young people. The youngest person that has received an honour from the Queen, I believe so far, has been 13 years old. So you see that anybody can be nominated and anybody can actually win and that receive an award. And they do this because they want to ensure that young people are engaged, are involved from a young age. So British Empire is focusing on them. So we've looked at the background, we've looked at how the honour system works. Now let's look at the perception of who actually receives the awards. So these are just some figures of how many people. Now everybody thinks that it's only celebrities that get these awards, but in fact, so there were just over 1,000. They didn't use the full 1,500 for this allocation, but 300, nearly 400 of the awardees got the MBE, just over 300 got the BEM, 200, nearly 230 received an OBE, 100 received a CBE, there were 17 knights, 16 companions. This is one that the Queen awards, the companions, and there were 15 dames. So you can see the higher the award, the less people are awarded, or the more you have to achieve to receive that award. So who gets the honours? So anybody can get an honour, as I said before. So it can be someone who's made an impact in their workplace, and that's usually for somebody who's done something extraordinary within their workplace, that something that might not have been achieved if that person hadn't done it within their workplace. Otherwise, and that's their paid job. Otherwise, it's usually a community award for people doing things outside of their day job that they don't get paid for, but has served the community and had a positive impact on the community. Could be someone who has exemplified the very best. I think this is the young man that received the BEM. I think he's the first young person to receive a BEM in recent times. So it's about doing something exemplary, but also not only about doing it once, but being sustained and being selfless in their service, their voluntary service. Someone who's gained the respect of their peers. Again, this could be in business or it could be in the community. Someone who's changed things for the better, opened doors, having other people recognized, doing things that's impactful for the community positively. This young lady is a nurse. She received her, I believe MBE, I believe she received. And this was all about, yes, she was doing her work as a nurse, but she was doing things within the community outside or over and above what she was supposed to be or what she was employed or paid to do. So that's what it's really all about. Who do you nominate? Who's good to nominate? Well, right now, there are quite a few gaps, and these gaps sometimes close, sometimes don't. But right now, there are regional disparities, and it seems the further north you go, the less people are nominated. So the less people from probably Birmingham upwards receive awards. They're not as engaged as the people who are in London and the Southeast. Entrepreneurs, they need more nominations going through from entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are so busy keeping their business going and doing fantastic things that quite often they don't get nominated. People don't think of nominating them. The retail sector, which is an incredibly important sector for business, we need more people being nominated through that. Also technology, because that's just the way forward, and we need more recognition within that sector. Philanthropists, again, we need to look and reward and recognize people who are doing or supporting other people financially in many ways, whether it's a charity or not. And then, of course, women, and even more so minorities. So these are the main gaps where if you nominate somebody, you're more likely to succeed. I'm not saying you will, say you're more likely to succeed in these areas. So how to nominate, this is the thing. And who can be considered? Anybody can be considered who made a significant contribution to their community above and beyond their paid, for what they're paid for. It must have had a positive impact, and the decisions are taken on merit. So when you write a nomination, there's so many things that you really, it's almost like you really have to boast about that person and make it clear what it is that they've done and why they've done it. So what I want to do now is just to play you a 4 or 5 minute video that will show you and walk you through the actual nominations process. So there you go.
This video is here to help you complete an honours nomination form. So do you know somebody who deserves an honour? Someone who is making a real positive difference? Someone whose work or volunteering really stands out from the crowd? Someone who goes that extra mile and then some? Then it's time to nominate them for an honour. People from every walk of life in all parts of the UK receive honours. So for example, people who devote their spare time to volunteering or fundraising for charities. People who make a difference through the local community groups that they run, like dance groups for the disabled, or lunch clubs for the elderly, or sports clubs for kids. People who go way beyond their job, like the doctor who runs sessions for new parents in first aid for babies and children, who pops in to see her elderly patients just to check that they are okay, and donates her services to help a local homeless charity. People who run successful businesses, but also use their talents to help others, perhaps by taking the lead with other business owners to set up an apprenticeship academy or a mentoring scheme to help young people into careers. Well, this video is here to help you give your nominee the best possible chance when you complete the form. But the first thing to remember is that you must not tell the person that you are nominating them, and this is really important. And just a quick reminder that you can't nominate yourself. So, we know that filling in any form can be a bit daunting. So on the first page of the form, you'll find some helpful hints and tips. But remember, if you get stuck, you can always contact the Honours and Appointments Secretariat for help. The first page asks you for your nominee's details, things like their name, their address, their date of birth and nationality. This is really important because we need to be sure that we're considering the right person. Next, we ask you to tell us in a nutshell what you're nominating the person for. So for example, services to a particular charity, or services to the elderly in Wigan, or services to healthcare and the homeless in Newcastle. Next, we need some details of how long the person has been doing this for and whether they're paid to do this. If you've got the exact dates, that's really helpful. And we also need to know if they are still doing it. So, for example, this person has been a doctor since 1975, which is a paid role. They volunteered for the homeless charity since 1992. They set up the first aid sessions for parents and grandparents in 2010, and this is a voluntary role, and they've run these sessions every 2 months since then. Then we get to the real heart of your nomination, where we need to know the real difference that the person you're nominating has made. And this is where we need as much detail as possible, although we're not expecting pages. So please tell us, what has this person achieved? Think about what things were like before they started and how they're different now. What makes them stand out from others who are doing similar things? Why are they a role model? And why are they respected by others? Are there any circumstances that have made this even more of an achievement, perhaps tough choices they've had to make or obstacles they've had to overcome? And do remember to tell us everything your person does that is relevant. So, for example, the person in a deprived estate who set up street sports for the local kids 5 years ago. She persuaded local businesses to donate equipment. She found volunteers to help, and this included people from the estate, from the housing association, local businesses, and the police. She also persuaded the local school to let them use their hall when the weather was bad. And she did this despite having severe health problems herself. As a result, crime has dropped on the estate by 35%, and over 60 kids have been given work experience or job opportunities with local businesses. Then we need to know if there's anyone doing something similar, and if so, what makes this person stand out from the rest? So, for example, with our doctor, there are other local doctors, but there are none that have donated their time to help address the health issues of the homeless or to help new parents with life-saving first aid. Next, we look to see if your nominee has been recognised for their contribution elsewhere. So this might be in your local press or perhaps through an award. If so, please do include newspaper clippings or photos if you have them. And then we're looking for at least 2 letters of support. It's important that these are written by people who have first-hand experience of the difference your person makes and can tell us more about them. And of course, they also need to want to support the nomination. So, for an example, with our street sports, it might be a letter from a young person who attended the street sports and through that found a job, or perhaps a letter from a local policeman explaining the difference the street sports made to local crime. And the last thing we ask for are your details and that you sign and date the form. It's also really helpful for us if you can complete the diversity monitoring section. And that's it. But please be patient. As you would expect, there are checks that the honours team have to do, and that takes time. And then every nomination is very carefully considered by the appropriate committee. So it can take us 18 to 24 months from a nomination being submitted to an honour being awarded. And remember, you can download the form from www.gov.uk/honours, or simply call 0207 276 2777 and the team will send you one. So are you ready to make that nomination? We hope so.
And there you go. So it's as easy as that, as they say. But as I mentioned before, we are looking for more people outside of London and the southeast. As these maps will tell you, the red areas are the areas that we really need more nominations from, and we need more nominations from women, from Black, Asian minority at a senior level. So that's anything CBEs, DBEs. We need more nominations of people who are suitable for that. We need nominations for people with disabilities, young people, entrepreneurs, retail sector, and technology, but again, within these areas. I don't want to go through the figures, but basically this tells you what, the kind of numbers and the percentages that would be, that will probably tell. I mean, I'm happy to go through it with anybody who wants to do it individually, but it might take a little bit of time to do it here and now. But it just gives you an idea, a very brief overview of how low some of the territories or some of the areas are, the regions are, compared to London. So just as a, for instance, London is 18%, where East Midlands is 4%. It just, needs a lot more work. Scotland, 8% is quite low. But anyway, as I said, that's another presentation on its own. And again, so this is by who's received what level during which year and how it's increased. As you see, as I mentioned before, ethnicities for for the British Empire Medal and for MBEs, you know, that has risen significantly. When I was on the committee, we started off at, I think it was around about 7 or 8%, and we wanted to get it to 10%, which we did. But it's carried on rising, which is great. So what works versus what doesn't? What you need to do is make sure that you use recent examples, because as recent as possible, because remember, this could take 2 years, which means that recent example is then like 2 years old by the time you actually get awarded. However, as I said before, you can also update. So use recent examples, don't use jargon, tell a really good story and include the letters of support. We'll talk a little bit more about the letters of support later on. Really ensure that you don't mislead the nominations team, that your nominee or information about the nominee is not hard to find. Make sure that it's not hard to prove or provide proof. And most of all, just make sure that the person that you describe as a nominee is actually the person you know, that is on the form. You'd be surprised the things that happen and get through. So what you should include is to make sure that you talk about what they are, it should be what they are doing versus what you think they should be doing, what they've done, what kind of work, why was that work needed? Was it voluntary work? Was it a group? Was it an individual? Was it an initiative that they actually led? What's the geographical reach of the work that this person has done? Is it timely? And is everything you've included full, factual, and accurate? That really just helps the process, because if they then have to come back to you, find you, call you, email you, that just holds up the process of your nominations. The ones that get through the system faster are the ones that on site immediately are able to be proved and moved to the committees. And most of all, you have to remember, you can talk to anyone about the nominee except the nominee. And that's, you know, for me, that's a little bit tricky, but you can speak to their family, their friends. One of the things that I found, that sometimes someone may have gone through the whole process of nominating someone only to find out that that particular nominee does not believe in the empire, is not interested in royalty, you know, and is just not interested. So before you start writing a nomination, you need to somehow check that all of that, you've got all that information and you're doing the right thing for the right person. Also, just remember that under GDPR rules, honours are exempt. So you do not have to get the nominee's permission to send in the nomination or to talk about them. But as I said, just make sure that you talk to their close friends and family to make sure that it's something that they would want and that they would accept and that they would appreciate. So your nominations checklist, make sure that you start and finish with a strong sentence, an attractive, compelling story, a compelling sentence. Use compelling words. Make sure that all the information is relevant. It says there's a 3,000 character limit, but I think it's a bit more than that. Highlight the individual's achievements. Start with the most recent and important achievements. Check that the information is factual and up to date. Include dates, their job titles, and the actions that they did that actually made an impact, a positive impact. include your candidates' influence on the practices or colleagues or on the good things across the community or the professions that they have made possible, that they've instituted, and provide anecdotal evidence to support your nomination outcomes. Because if your nominee did this, this happened. If they didn't do this, this could have happened. So just talk about the positive side of their actions and what they've done. Use facts and figures, how many people have been impacted, what areas, what change it's made, and just really talk up their nomination, because the people that are in the are on the committees, they won't know your person, they won't know the community that that the nominee has impacted. So you have to use every trick and tip that you've got that will capture their imagination, to make them say, yeah, this could be a good one to consider. Now, if for any reason you decide that the Queen's Honours is not a nomination that you might want to look at, you can nominate them for a Queen's Award for voluntary services or a Queen's Award for enterprise. Again, more or less the same sort of thing, but specifically for business or for voluntary services. Points of Light and the Civic Awards. Those two, you probably need to Google them and find out a bit more about them, because they are very different to the Queen's Awards and for enterprise and for voluntary services, which are the better known ones. So what next? What next is that you nominate, or well, first and foremost, you get all of your information gathered. The last thing you want to do is to start nominating and then find you cannot continue. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you've got all the information in one place, you've checked everything, and then go on to the Honours website. As I said before, everything is now digital. I believe you still can nominate on paper, or through a Word doc or something like that. But to be honest, it's faster, it's easier, it's more convenient to do all these things online. So you can go to gov.uk/honours and type in nominate, and you will come to the appropriate page, Honours. So you'll get there. What you need to do though, is to be very patient. Though you can ring the Cabinet Office, as it said in the video, or you can email them. And then the next thing you do is, from our point of view, we would love for you to, well, you've joined the free morning workshop because you're here now, but for you to join our directory, join the WinTrade membership. It's free for 2 weeks, and you can actually go in, have a look around, join the Honours Circle, and there we can have regular meetings, we can answer questions, you can contact me directly through there. The other thing that you can do, if you have any questions or if you'd like any more help, just make sure that you email me. So at this point, or should I say that you contact me through my EA, which is Natasha. We will give you the information at the end. But at this point, it would be really good just to find out whether you're at number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, or number 5, just so that I get a sense that I've given you enough information. So let's just put it in the chat box. That would be great. Okay. All right, well, that's interesting. You feel, many of you feel you've got enough information, but many of you would still like to know more, and many of you are 4 and 5. So there are some of you that are kind of overlapped. So that's great. Thank you very much. Those of you who still feel you need more information, as I said, join the WinTrade Global directory and contact us in that way. I just wanted to show you this. And again, this is my certificate that I received from the Queen, as well as my CBE badge, honor, whatever you want to call it. And that is it in the flesh. There you go. That's what it looks like. Quite heavy, and they are actually worth a bit of money. So everybody that gets one, you need to take care of it. And that is actually gold there. So it is worth a little bit of money, more than a little bit. So it's worth doing it. So all I would do now is ask you that if you have received enough information, or you know what to do now, what I would ask you, how likely are you to nominate someone for an award? Do you know someone that would be good for an award? And to be honest, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Because what tends to happen is that people think, oh, I don't think I'll do it because I'm sure someone else has done it. That someone else is saying, I'm not going to do it because I'm sure someone else has done it. And then no one ends up doing it because everybody thinks that someone else has done it. So take charge, help change someone else's destiny and nominate them, and do it now, because if you don't take action now, the best way to achieve anything is to take action. So take action now. And the action that you can take is, if you feel I've answered all of your questions, or if you still need some more help, book a free 30-minute mentoring or coaching call, either with myself or Sydney. We do actually have an advisor as well, and that advisor will help you to walk you through and help you with some tips as well. So really just email natasha.deal@wintradeglobal.com, and she will book some time in with myself or somebody to help you. So at that point, we will leave this with the Q&As. I know there are lots of questions, but I hope I've answered most of them. But as I say, for now, just contact natasha.deal@wintradeglobal.com,